On today's show, Alperen Şengün gets hurt, and the offense completely disappears in the Rockets' loss to the Mavericks. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're talking about the Rockets' 110-104 loss to the Mavericks. The Kevin Durant Masterclass, 34 points on 14 of 26 shooting was not enough to get them over the hump in this game. Alperen Şengün gets hurt 60 seconds into this one. That's a tough blow. And there was no Steven Adams in this game. And the Rockets offense was just flat out awful in the non-Kevin Durant minutes. We're going to break it all down for you on today's show. And of course, want to thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And if you are an everydayer, and if you saw my little announcement, I was on the DNP list for the Nets recap. So I apologize about that. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm waving the stupid splint that I have on my arm in front of you. This sucks. Not being able to use my left hand is awful, but ball up top, we move. So let's talk about this 110-104. Actually, no. Funniest, most creative YouTube comment of how I broke my wrist earns my undying love and affection. That's what you get. I don't know. Praise, all of that. Bragging rights. Sure, we'll go with that. Give me your funniest. I want to make light of this stupid situation I'm in. All right. Rockets 110-104 loss to the Mavericks. And this game, the tone of this game felt kind of funky as immediately after the Alperen Şengün injury happened, because it was barely 60 seconds into this game, like a little bit more than 60 seconds. And Alperen Şengün twists not one, but both his ankles on an awkward fall going for a rebound. Immediately has to check out of the game. Can't even make it across half court. Clint Capela essentially is the Rockets starting center in this game, for all intents and purposes, because Şengün played basically 2 possessions and then was out of the game. So tough blow for the Rockets, but that kind of set the tone for this game, and you knew what to expect because Kevin Durant was stellar to start the game, had a quick 14 points in the first quarter, and the question was going to become essentially, all right, well, how are the Rockets going to survive these non-Kevin Durant minutes? And that's the same question that the Rockets faced back in the couple games that Kevin Durant missed earlier this season, right? How do the Rockets survive the non-Alperen Şengün minutes? Because the Rockets offense, without one of those 2 guys on the floor this season, has been anything less than stellar. And that immediately reflected in this game. This game can really be boiled down to Kevin Durant was phenomenal. Alperen Şengün got hurt, and the Rockets were seriously unable to generate any reliable offense in the non-Kevin Durant minutes. And then that was further exacerbated by the fact that KD got in some foul trouble at one point in this game, which forced him back to the bench. So the Rockets were forced into 2.5 extra minutes of non-KD offense on the floor, and it set them behind in this game. There were a couple key runs, key points in this game that we'll kind of break down and talk about, but I want to focus in specifically, right? So Kevin Durant, 34 points, 14 of 26 shooting. He was 2 of 7 from downtown. You'd like that to be a little bit better, but he's 4 of 5 at the charity stripe, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks. He was phenomenal defensively in this game, and only 2 turnovers. This was basically a Kevin Durant masterclass, and it wasn't enough because the Rockets were so bad in the non-Kevin Durant minutes. KD was a plus 15 in this game, mind you. But in those non-Kevin Durant minutes, the guys that you were relying on for offense, outside of Amin Thompson had a solid enough game. 20 points, 8 of 18 shooting. You'd like to see it be a little bit more efficient. He was 0 of 3 from beyond the arc. He got kind of forced or baited into taking multiple threes. Not sure how many of them I truly liked or felt that they were high-quality shots within the flow of the offense. Maybe 1 or 2 of them. 12 rebounds, 6 of them on the offensive glass. 4 assists, 3 steals, had a block, only a couple turnovers. Amin Thompson had a strong enough game, but Amin Thompson was not enough to succeed by himself in those non-Kevin Durant minutes. And then you look across the board at the rest of the offensive contributions for the Rockets in this game, and it was miserable. The Rockets only shot as a team 39% from the floor, 24% overall from three, and even at the free throw line, they missed 3 free throws, 80% there. But you go down the board, Jabari Smith Jr., 2 of 13, only 7 points on 2 of 13 shooting. Tari Eason, 19 points, sure, 7 of 17 shooting. Really rough efficiency-wise. And then off the bench, DFS, just 1 of 3. Aaron Holiday, 0 for 6. Josh Okogie, just 1 of 3. Reed Sheppard, 3 of 10. The Rockets' offense was just could not hit water if they fell out of a boat in this game. And sometimes that just happens. Sometimes the offense that's being generated is actually still good. You're generating high-quality looks. You're generating opportunities, and you just can't capitalize on them. And it was kind of a twofold problem, because the offense, when Kevin Durant was off the floor, did look really, really bad for significant stretches of this game. But it was also the fact that even when Kevin Durant was on the floor, guys just flat out could not hit shots. I mean, they were generating some high quality, wide open looks, even late in this game. Even late in this game, you had opportunities. You had wide open threes for Jabari Smith Jr. and Kevin Durant, threes that would have cut this to a 1-possession game or a 2-point game or a 4-point game very late in this one, where there was still life as the Rockets were trying to make their final push to claw their way back into this one. This is now, if the Rockets go down by 13 or more points, they are 0-9 in games where they trail by more than 13. They just don't have the juice to mount comebacks. Like this team, when they go down big, and they went down 17 was the Mavericks' biggest lead at one point early in the fourth quarter. This Rockets team just does not appear to have the juice to come back from being down. Now, they haven't been in a ton of close games this season, and they generally have blown out the teams that they've won against, and then they've struggled in those really close games. But they're also struggling to get themselves. They can get back into games, but it's actually winning them after trailing by as many as 13. 0-9 so far this season. That's tough for this team. They have not been able to mount a successful comeback once they go down by that many. They get close to the finish line, but can't quite get over the hump. That's what happened in this one. Kevin Durant, flawless game, and then the rest of the offense just flat out disappeared in this one. I do want to talk about some of the different stretches of this game that really compounded issues, the significant moments from this game, as well as what we saw out of Jabari Smith Jr. And the positive note here, Clint Capela stepping up in a big way with no Alperen Şengün in the middle. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge. But with Prize Picks, it feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and Prize Picks lets you stay in control. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections, no drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on Prize Picks is quick and simple. The app is super easy to navigate. The flexibility with options like Flex Play, where you can still get paid even if one pick misses, is awesome. It's made watching games more engaging, especially if you're following along for individual player performances and stat lines. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right. Now, despite how rough this game looked, it felt like it was still a very winnable game. And this is why, I'm not more frustrated, I guess, by this loss, because Alperen Şengün gets hurt. You already don't have Steven Adams, so you're incredibly thin on the front line. And this is a Mavericks team that plays really big with Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford out there at the same time. And if I had one like major gripe in this game, it's that the Rockets played well enough defensively to win this game. They were just flat out abysmal on offense. But even defensively, like Anthony Davis got whatever he wanted, 26 points on 9 of 15 shooting, 8 of 9 at the free throw line. I lost track of how many different and ones Anthony Davis had in this game. But the decision by Ime Udoka and companies to just never double Anthony Davis, to just let him essentially play one-on-one against Clint Capela or Jabari Smith Jr. or Kevin Durant or whoever was guarding AD down low, it's like the Rockets just elected to let him play one-on-one most of the night. And that felt like at some point that's got to feel like a tactical mistake when you realize that he's just not going to miss shots and he's just going to continue to keep cooking you. So that was my one major gripe defensively. That and nobody could hold Max Christie for some reason. 24 points on 10 of 13 shooting. He was 4 of 6 from downtown. Max Christie, it was like the Luka trade package had themselves a night in this game against the Rockets. But even despite how rough things looked in this game, right? It was very winnable at different stretches. There was a point late in this game where, and this sequence all but kind of like encapsulated just how rough this game had been for the Rockets offensively. I just want to highlight this really quickly. The Rockets took 106 shots in this game. 106. They took 26 more shots than the Mavericks did, because the Mavericks took 80 shots in this game. Mavericks managed to shoot 55% on their 80 shots, though. Rockets only shot 39% on their 106 shots. Rockets made 3 less shots than the Mavericks, and they had 26 more attempts to do it. The only way this could be any funnier is if they had 27 more attempts to do it and failed to do. Sorry, just unearthing trauma for Rockets fans on a Monday morning. No big deal. So look, this game, the Rockets usually pride themselves on like their volume scoring approach, where they just bludgeon you over the head with second chance opportunities and offensive rebounds and all that. Rockets were plus 15 in the offensive rebound category, 17-2. Rockets had 17 offensive rebounds. Amen Thompson had 6. Clint Capela had 5. There was a smattering, with other guys. Jabari Smith Jr. had a few of them. 3. Tari Eason had a couple. DFS had 1. They only scored 15 points off of those offensive rebounds. 15 points on 17 offensive rebounds is a pretty miserable number, especially when you're losing the transition battle, especially when you're just flat out not making shots to begin with. Like, there were so many possessions, and this is the one at the end of the game. They were down 8 with 3.5 minutes left to play. Rockets had 4 different shot attempts on one possession. Aaron Holiday missed a 3-pointer. Then Jabari gets the offensive rebound. Then KD misses a 3-pointer. And that one, to be fair, that one was like a grenade because there was very little time left on the clock. KD misses his 3-pointer, the grenade. And then Thompson gets the offensive rebound. Then Aaron Holiday misses another 3-pointer. And then Thompson gets another offensive rebound. And then Tari Eason drives the ball in, and AD blocks Tari on a layup attempt at the rim. 4 different shot opportunities on one possession, and you went 0 of 3 from 3, and you got blocked at the rim on the final attempt on Tari's drive. Like that, and then to make to just add like fuel to the fire for the Mavericks, they come down after that sequence where they were only down 8, and Klay Thompson hits a big 3-pointer. Like that stung a lot, right? To have all those opportunities offensively, to miss every single one, and then to have a Klay Thompson 3-pointer in your face at the end of it all. It felt that way, where every time the Rockets did make a push, they had a stretch where they looked like they were locking in offensively, where shots started to fall, where Kevin Durant started to take the game back over, and they just could not get themselves over the hump in this one. And there was that sequence really late in the game where the Jabari Smith Jr. 3-pointer got waved off because Amen Thompson had stepped out of bounds. But that 3-pointer would have been the second 3 of the game that Jabari hit. Would have only been his 3rd field goal. And that would have made the game 106-104 with I think a couple minutes left to play, 30 seconds left, somewhere 60 seconds. So it was close enough to the end that it was like we could have been talking about a crazy comeback from down 17 in the fourth quarter, all that stuff, but they just weren't able to get it done. They didn't have enough shot making late. Kevin Durant didn't get enough offensive help, unfortunately, at the end of the game. And I don't know that it makes that much of a difference, but the decision to not play Clint Capela to close out the game, Clint had a strong enough game. We'll talk about his performance in a minute, but ultimately, was that the difference maker? Would they have played better or worse with Capela on the floor? Would the spacing have been, different? Could they played over the top and gotten some more pick and roll action with him out there? Who knows? But that wasn't the only point in the game. It was the two other major points where they kind of fell behind by a decent chunk, right? First off, it started at the top of the fourth quarter too. But basically every section where KD sat, so his first, the Rockets had a lead in this game after one quarter. They were up 31-25. And then the Mavericks ripped off a run at the top of the second quarter where the Rockets went scoreless for the first 3 minutes of the second quarter. Not only that, they only had 5 points in 6 minutes and 20 seconds of game time in the second quarter. They were held to just 19 points in that frame. After scoring 31, just to put it in perspective, after scoring 31 in the first quarter with Kevin Durant on the floor all 12 minutes, the Rockets then proceeded to score 19 points in the second and just 25 points in the third, 44 points over the next 24 minutes of game time. In part because they just completely dried up the offense in the non-KD minutes in the second quarter. And then things were exacerbated because once KD came back, offense started clicking, looked a little bit better. And this was a very key inflection point of this game, Kevin Durant picks up back-to-back fouls late in the second quarter. He picked up his fourth with a little more than 2.5 left in the second quarter, I believe. And the first foul, the on Najee Marshall, the shooting foul, it looked like there was contact on the Najee Marshall foul. So that one, kind of whatever. The fourth foul with 80, literally barreling towards the rim where he chucks his elbow into KD's outstretched arms, felt really crappy. By the book, it's a foul, but that's one that you feel miserable about. If you get that foul, if Kevin Durant or Alperen Şengün get that foul, I'm thinking to myself, that's a bad call. I'm happy they got it, but it's a bad call, and I'd be frustrated by it as a sports fan. And I was, right? So KD picks up his fourth. Rockets have to try and challenge it. Challenge unsuccessful. KD sits back down, and the Mavs went on a 9-2 scoring run. This game was tied up 48-all when KD sat. And they went on a 9-2 scoring run to close out the half to take a 57-50 lead into halftime. But these were the offensive possessions, to close out the half. It was a Reed Clint pick and roll. Nothing happened. Then a Jabari Clint pick and roll that turned into a deflection. And then there was 2.7 seconds left on the clock. So then you get a ATO Reed catch and shoot 3-pointer over the outstretched arms of Anthony Davis. Bad possessions. Next possession down, you get Reed and Tari 2-man game. Tari pops out for a 3-pointer. Miss. It was a decent enough possession. One action, an open 3 for one of your best 3-point shooters. You live with that possession. That one was decent. Then you get another Reed Clint Capela pick and roll lob that was broken up by Cooper Flagg. Then you get an Amin Thompson Reed Sheppard pick and roll that leads to a really tough contested layup, or sorry, pull up shot attempt for Amin Thompson. Tries to go glass, misses. Then the second to last possession was a Tari Clint Capela pick and roll is what the Rockets offense is boiled down to. That's what it's devolved to at this point. Tari and Clint Capela pick and roll that turns into a Tari Eason floater from just outside the paint. Miss. Bad offensive possession. And then the final possession of the half was an Amin Thompson drive on Anthony Davis of all people, and just not a chance to make the shot. It was some really bad offense to close out that stretch, and pretty much in every stretch without Kevin Durant on the floor, the Rockets just got flat out cooked and could not generate consistent offense. And that is unfortunately an indictment right on Amin Thompson and Reed Sheppard. You need to get more out of one of them. You need some creation ability. Reed did okay in his minutes, and Amin Thompson did okay in his minutes, but both of them need to be significantly better, that the Rockets should be able to rely on at least one of them. But if both of them are out there at the same time, that should be enough to generate you some decent offense. And it just felt like the Rockets couldn't get anything going. And then it started devolving into like Jabari's going to try this, and Tari's going to try this, and Aaron Holiday is going to try this. And like, that can't be it, right? Like, both Amin and Reed need to be better for this team offensively, more consistent about generating offensive looks, either for themselves or for others, so that the Rockets don't have to rely on this recipe of everything has to go through one of Kevin Durant or Alperen Şengün. Because in the rare occasions like this where you miss out on your co-star, you need to at least be able to survive those minutes. Not that they were like exclusively non-Kevin Durant minutes, because there were some minutes with Reed and KD out there together, but Reed was a minus 24 in this game. And he played a lot of his minutes without KD on the court because Ime needed somebody to step up offensively, and the Rockets just couldn't get it done. So minus 24 in a 6-point game is pretty damning on the plus-minus charts. Coming up, want to get into final thoughts from this game. Clint Capela's solid performance in the absence of Alperen Şengün, Amin Thompson's downhill play in this one, and more. We're going to get there in just 1 second. First, today's episode is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Quo makes everything easier. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed out on. It works right from your phone or computer. You can even keep your existing number if you would like. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. The comments help us out a ton. Remember, funniest wrist injury story. Rockets are now trailing the Mavericks in the season series 2-1. Back-to-back losses against the Mavericks in the last couple of meetups. They'll have one more opportunity at the end of this month, the 31st of January, in fact, final day, to get their get back against this Mavericks team. Look, this is I struggle to call this one like another, like to be like, this is a bad loss. It's definitely not the same type of loss as the Pelicans or the Kings or the Clippers. Like, I'm not going to put it in that category. It's frustrating, and it's frustrating because the Rockets had so many different chances to play better than they actually were playing in this game. And sometimes it does just boil. Like, when your two starting forwards combine to go 10 of 30, like that's hard to overcome, right? And the Rockets just could not make up the lack of offensive creation from not having Alperen Şengün on the floor. Because here's the thing. Had Steven Adams been healthy, Steven Adams helps unlock some of the Rockets offense when he's out there by himself, because he's an underrated passer. He's an incredible screen setter, right? He helps create opportunities, creates openings, and he also attacks the offensive glass like it's nobody's business, right? So he generates some of those second and third chance opportunities. So instead of needing, Jabari in there crashing the glass, or Tari in there crashing the glass, or whatever, you get Steve O in there crashing the glass, drawing fouls, to getting the Rockets into the bonus, which they did not do very well in this game, only 15 free throw attempts. But then those guys, the Taris and Baris of the world, are in position out on the 3-point line to hoist and get up more shot attempts from deep instead. Not that maybe would have mattered in this game, because they just flat out just weren't connecting. Jabari, again, 1 of 7. Tari was 3 of 6 from long distance. So Tari was still shooting his blistering 50%. But it was all the other guys really struggling to just connect, create opportunities from deep. So because it was a twofold problem, missing Şengün and missing Steven Adams, and you still had a phenomenal game from KD. Like, it feels bad, but you just kind of chalk this one up to like the role players were just not great in this game. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes your role players just aren't going to deliver. And that's where you really do have to lean so heavily on your stars. And if there was another gripe to be had in this game, I mean, I really did think KD played about as well as you could have asked him to play under the circumstances. He had a strong first quarter. He tried to put the team on his back as best he could in the fourth quarter, had 12 points in the final frame. Played some stellar defense, had a ridiculous block on PJ Washington, I believe it was one point at the rim. Like, felt like KD tried to put the Rockets on his back and just couldn't quite get them over the hump because he didn't have that like second in command to take a little bit of pressure off defensively, and already kind of harped on that, right? That's where you need, ideally, you need Amin Thompson to step up and be able to fill that role a little bit better, because Amin still had some good moments in this game, but you know, it doesn't really feel like Amin is at a point where the defense, where he's able to dictate, you know, the game offensively because of his limitations on that side of the floor, unfortunately. So it's still like Amin is scoring, cool. He got 20 points on 18 shots, cool. Like, is he creating opportunity? Is he creating consistent opportunities for himself to score and be getting downhill? Is he creating consistent opportunities for his teammates to set them up, to force double teams, to collapse the defense? And it didn't really feel like it was happening a ton in this game, unfortunately. It was good to see Amin Thompson getting downhill, though, and that's the thing. Like, once he gets to the point in his career development where he realizes that he is just truly that unguardable and getting downhill and playing with pace, and it doesn't just have to be like going 0 to 100 every single time. We've seen him break out the deceleration moves. We've seen him get creative in and around the basket, but sometimes he just doesn't feel like he's like, I don't want to say like in the mood to drive, but sometimes it's like, dude, you are faster than literally everybody out there on the floor. Just put your head down and get to the rim, because when you do that, generally you get the benefit of the doubt, right? If you go careening into guys in the paint and you're that fast and that big and strong, like, if you force the issue, refs are going to have to blow the whistle. You get sent to the free throw line, 6, 8, 10, 12 plus times. That helps out considerably. And so there's no reason why against the team too that was running for at least, most of for chunks of the game, double big lineups featuring Davis and Gafford, right? Two big men down there that you can just drive the ball directly into, elevate, try to draw contact, dunk it on their heads if you need to. Like, would like to see Amin Thompson be more aggressive getting downhill, since again, he really is the Rockets' only downhill threat that they have on the roster currently, or only consistent downhill threat. So when he's not getting downhill, and like in some of those non-Kevin Durant minutes, Rockets just couldn't even buy a paint touch. They were just stranded on the perimeter, like playing dribble handoff outside. They'd try to drive it in, and the Mavs did a great job forcing the ball out. Their defense was good. The pressure was there. And it made the Rockets uncomfortable at times. So credit to the Mavericks defense, because their offense was pretty solid in this game. Their defense definitely disrupted the Rockets a fair bit, but I think it was more so the Rockets shooting themselves in their own foot this game by just not capitalizing on the open opportunities that they did get. I'd love to go back and like look at this game and find out, like, once the tracking data lines up, to just find out how many open three-pointers the Rockets missed in this game, because it felt like they missed a fair share of wide open shots in this one. Clint Capela did a really stellar job, though, stepping in for Alperen Şengün. 8 points, 8 rebounds, couple assists, 5 steals, 2 blocks, only 1 turnover, 4 of 8 shooting. This was part of my reason that I was a little perplexed that Ime didn't run with Clint out there to close the game. I get maybe wanting like the 5-out spacing, and you get that when you're running Jabari at the 5. Little bit more lineup versatility, sure, but Clint was really good in the minutes that he was out there, and it really felt like he did a strong job, like kind of trying his best to anchor the paint. Some of those one-on-one possessions against Anthony Davis didn't go over, incredibly well, but his hands were active. He was forcing deflections and getting disruptions in and around the basket. And so it kind of felt like the Rockets could have used that a little bit, at various points in this game, maybe more so than they ultimately did. But defensively, there was maybe a point in the third quarter where it felt like the Rockets were giving up a lot. Like the Mavs had like multiple downhill drives where they just could not get a stop. Yeah, there was a stretch. It was a stretch in the third quarter. Jabari Smith Jr. hit his one and only three-pointer to tie the game up at 65. And then the Mavericks went on a 9-0 run after that to balloon the lead out to 74-65. And in that stretch, it felt like it was like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 trips, like back to back to back, straight to the basket, where the Mavericks had like zero defensive resistance, just almost straight line drives to the rim, with zero help defender coming over to try and stop the ball. And it was just like that was kind of a stretch of like defensive breakdown coupled with the struggling offense in that third quarter. And that's why the Rockets wound up losing that quarter by 5. They lost the second quarter 32-19. And you have that lead balloon out to where Mavericks hit a couple early shots in the fourth, and you're already up to a 17-point lead that you're having to try and claw yourselves out of, which, to their credit, they almost did, right? Like, it was Kevin Durant played 38 minutes, and if he hadn't gotten into foul trouble and had to sit for the final 2.5 minutes of that second half, maybe the Rockets are in a better position to start halftime, or start after halftime, I should say. It's kind of one of those where I think you just ball this one up. It's a frustrating loss for a few different reasons, but the Rockets should have won this game. They hit a few more shots, right? You get a halfway decent performance out of Jabari Smith Jr. Tari Eason hits a couple more shots around the rim. Reed Sheppard, a slightly normal performance. Aaron Holiday doesn't go over, right? You're talking about albeit probably a close win, but still a win where the Rockets played well enough to win this game and just could not, for the life of them, score the basketball. And that's frustrating, but it is what it is. I'm curious your thoughts. What stood out to you from this Rockets-Mavs matchup? What did you like? What did you not like? What did you see as the major issues in this game? Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.